Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is, my name is Cora, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. This session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name, email address, and/or phone number may be viewable by other session participants in the attendee list. By joining, you're agreeing to this experience. The recording will be available on the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page within the coming weeks. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions at the end of our session with a dedicated Q&A. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Jiacheng Shah, software engineer. Jiacheng, over to you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Cora, for the kind of introduction. I'm Jiacheng Xia, software engineer from Microsoft Dynamics 365 team, working on inventory visibility service. Our topic today is exploring Dynamics 365 supply chain management inventory data with inventory visibility service. Joining me today is our inventory visibility service program manager, Yufei Huang, and Hiren Naik from Fast Track team. Some of our audiences have probably joined our previous session, the Scale and Harmonize Your Business Inventory with Inventory Visibility, the one we hosted back in middle August, when we went through the key challenges that inventory visibility service aims to solve and give a general introduction. In the following sessions, we are exploring more concrete topics with inventory visibility service. Specifically, today we're exploring the Dynamics 365 supply chain inventory data with inventory visibility service, where we show you how inventory visibility service provides a way to view your inventory data in near real time, but outside Dynamics 365 supply chain management. We'll also be covering topics including the concepts comparison between the Dynamics 365 supply chain management, as well as how to do customizations on top of your Dynamics to enable certain features inside inventory visibility service. And besides, we have planned topics to handle inventory updates from multiple data sources and configure inventory visibility service to meet different business scenarios. Throughout today's talk, we'll be showing how inventory visibility service serves as an ideal solution for the task above and demonstrate the process with videos and various case studies. We begin with a typical use case of exploring Dynamics 365 supply chain on-hand inventory. The exploration includes reading the data from Dynamics 365 itself, as well as from inventory visibility service and the Power Apps solution that we built for the service. And we will go into the connection between Dynamics 365 supply chain management to introduce you the built-in synchronization mechanism to synchronize the inventory data to inventory visibility service with low latency. Understanding that this may not meet all of our users' needs, we introduce a few case studies to do customizations on top of Dynamics 365 supply chain management to transfer more data in a more flexible way to inventory visibility service. And finally, we bring the comparisons for certain concepts inside the Dynamics 365 supply chain management and how they are supported inside inventory visibility. And we will end up with a Q&A session. We're noticing the trends for our ERP system users, especially the Dynamics 365 supply chain management users, to extend their business outside the existing system. Imagine a company named Contoso System USA. They would like to extend the business to cope with the employees not operating directly on Dynamics 365. In other words, they would like to access, update, and analyze their on-hand inventory data to an external system in real time. And there are various asks from different stakeholders. For example, the IT team is building a web store that allows them to sell their goods over the internet. And the key challenge is how can they access the real-time on-hand inventory data that lies inside Dynamics 365 supply chain management. And the company has a sales manager that tracks the best sellers among a certain time period for a selected range of items and make comparisons and suggestions for the business groups. And there's a group of business strategists who wish to sort the inventory data for offline analytics and bring continuous improvement to their business plans. And above all, we have a team of Dynamics 365 developers who wants to apply the customizations to these above processes and to the solution as well. In this tech talk, we are showing with demos and examples on how to do that. Let us begin with exploring the Dynamics 365 supply chain management on-hand inventory data with inventory visibility service firstly. We have the inventory data that is inside Dynamics 365 supply chain management. We can access such data with on-hand list or report under inventory management module. This is a typical way of doing from Dynamics 365 supply chain management. Where you care about the inventory data, you will definitely try it. So this is a screenshot for a typical on-hand list, where you're allowed to have filters on your item IDs, inventory dimensions, as well as other attributes that is related to your inventory and display it on a form. So the real challenge comes on how we can make such a data easily accessible to external users outside Dynamics 365 supply chain management. And this is the place where inventory visibility service come into action. We move the data outside Dynamics 365 supply chain management and store it in a in-memory cache, where it would be making API calls via HTTP request. It not only provides a way to read the data, but also made it possible for external systems to be aware of the inventory data of each other. By leveraging inventory visibility service as the single source of truth, we build extensions on various systems querying inventory visibility service to know each other's on-hand. For example, you can have a web store that querying the real-time on-hand inventory. You can have a third-party system, for example, a POS machine that make queries to make sure there are enough quantity to put on the order that customer asks. Or you have a solution for monitoring system that periodically for the safety stocks and make replenishment suggestions and alerts when needed. But here is demo video on the comparison between reading the on-hand data inside Dynamics 365 and with inventory visibility service. We all know that the on-hand list form in Dynamics 365 lies in the inventory management module, and in on-hand list for inquiries and reports, you could go to the inventory on-hand form to type the information you need. For example, here we type a specially made made item called IVS001, and we query the on-hand for site 1 and warehouse 11. Where you have two records here, one is of size large and the other of size small, with 200 and 100 physical inventory each. let's say you have a web store that wants to access this information as well. So on the web store, you want to present a list of the real-time on-hand inventory. So to fetch the message from inventory visibility service, what you need to do is to make an API query interface that is called index query. Within the request body, you filter the dimensions and product IDs desired. Then group the results by size ID. So we aggregate the quantities, neglecting the unwanted inventory dimensions. You get a response in JSON format, which encodes all the information needed and parse them to the form to reveal the information needed. We actually have a software, we actually can use Postman to demonstrate more patterns that is supported by the query. For instance, for this example, you could query the on-hand for product ID IVS 001 and group the results by size ID, where you see that there is two records in the response body. One is of size small and one is of size large, with the quantities that are identical to Dynamic 365 on-hand list. When you send the query, you can get the response in a very short interval with a sub-second delay. And here we have the same product IDs, but different dimensions and quantities that is in two different records. And furthermore, we support to make the queries by different patterns. For example, we may only be quite curious about what's the on-hand quantities that has the size ID large. To do this, simply add an entry called size ID large in filters and make the query again. You will see that there is only one record instead of two in the response body. For those inventory dimensions that you do not care about, you could remove it from the group by dimensions and make another query, which will make an aggregated view to sum up all the quantities correspondingly. To understand more about the pattern for using on-hand index query, please refer to our Microsoft official documentation for inventory visibility. So now we can explore the inventory on hand through Dynamic 365 and as well as making API queries to inventory visibility. We can also make the queries through Dataverse. As you know, inventory visibility service has a solution that is built on top of Power Platforms, where we store the data in entities, and then you can leverage all the flexibility that is provided by Power Platform. We have a new feature called query preloading entity. That allows us to define a query, and we make a periodic update to this entity that stores the query result every 15 minutes. This is a relatively new feature at the preview stage. The idea is to store the query results periodically, so the query results will not be real-time. But the advantage is to put it in a more user-friendly way that Power Platform provides. Currently, we only support a fixed query by site and warehouse among all the items. the query will have 15-minute stillness in the background. The good thing about this feature is that users do not even need to bother making queries by themselves if they wish not to do so. Simply go to Feature Management and enable the feature, and you're ready to enjoy this feature. The limitation here is to set the group by and filter is not yet supported, but we have the plan to support it very soon. So what is the use of this feature? As we store the data in entities, so we are genuinely connecting inventory visibility service with Power Platform by this feature. You can read the data in a more user-friendly way. As mentioned, we have people more business-oriented who wish to read more Excel-like data, like the business strategist wants to export the data from a direct UI access or Excel format. And we have the sales procurement managers and inventory managers who wish to do an entity export for offline analysis. And we have the business analytics who would want to make fancy visualizations with Power BI. With a query preloading entity, it is all possible. So this page will give a simple view on what the entity looks like. As you can see, it is almost the same with supply chain management's on-hand list form. And it goes one step further to make it exportable, as you can click the Export to Excel button on the top right. And you can also define your own charts, flows, and other Power Platform related features, leveraging these features to connect your business with the Power Query preloading entity. When we think about what's the point of loading everything to Dataverse, we simply cannot ignore the power to play around with the entities provided by Power Platform. One typical scenario is how you work with Power BI. Let's say you're a sales manager. The inventory data holds the quantity of total sold items. It makes sense to do a visualization by a bar chart or to find the best sellers or by a pie chart to get the fractional knowledges. You simply import such entity with a few drags and clicks to present such info in Power BI. And it is possible to customize your own reports based on the entity data. We have the plan to ship an out-of-box Power BI report, but the schedule is not fixed yet. So here is the brief demo on what it looks like to leverage the query preloading entity. This is the Power Apps page for inventory visibility. On the left navigation bar, you can click on the preloading inventory query results tab page to review a page that holds the preloaded query results. And on top of the preloaded page, you have the default supported features that is provided by Power Platform. In the current page, I filter out the product IDs that begins with IVS prefix and site ID 1 and location ID 11. Despite they look visually a bit different, it is almost the same as the experience you scan through the Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management on-hand list form page. As you can see, we can select the display dimensions as well as making filters. And optionally, you can go to the Dataverse tables page, select all tables, search for the on-hand index query preload result to access the table directly. It is equally possible to export the entity from this page as well. And here is a very brief example that you can do in Power BI. We can store the data in the Power BI entity and drag them into the pie chart and bar chart to make intuitive visual comparisons. As we have already put the data into Dataverse, simply go to the Dataverse button and select the connector to your Dataverse environment. You should be ready to have this data available in your Power BI reports. So that's the 3 different paths that you can do to explore your on-hand data from Dynamic 365, either in the supply chain management module or by making API calls to inventory visibility service or in the Power App solution directly. Next, we'd go through the integration parts to show how data is synced from Dynamic 365 supply chain management to inventory visibility to support your needs. We'd begin with the built-in integration parts. This is the process to enable to send the data to inventory visibility from Dynamic 365 supply chain management. After we enable the corresponding features, we can click Enable on the top left side. It will trigger a process which we call initial push to send all the data in your Dynamic 365 supply chain management to inventory visibility. The status when it's in initial sync stage, it means that Dynamic 365 is on the first round of sending all the data to inventory visibility service. So when the enable button is clicked, simply wait for a couple of minutes for the initial push process to finish. And after a while, the status tends to enable. It means that we successfully synced each and every piece of data to inventory visibility service, and inventory visibility service should be able to get all the on-hand results that comes from your Dynamic 365 environment. And we can make direct comparisons between the Dynamic 365 supply chain management and inventory visibility service. Now what I'm going to do is to make a on-hand change in Dynamic 365 supply chain management. As you can see, I added 10 more pieces to the item with size large. If we go back to the inventory visibility service integration page, we'll see that there's one record pending to be posted to inventory visibility service, and in inventory visibility service, the result is not updated in real time. But it only takes a few seconds before you go back to Dynamic 365 to see that the data actually disappears and you remake the query. You will see that there's 10 more pieces added to the result. So that's how the process that inventory visibility provides a near real-time updates from Dynamic 365 supply chain management. So how is data synced from inventory visibility from Dynamic 365 to inventory visibility to keeping near real-time update? There is a recurrent batch job behind the background to ensure that. Let us consider a time when initial syncing is succeeded and your on-hand data is on both sides. Within a short time interval, there is a operation in your Dynamic 365 supply chain management. Let's say someone added the on-hand quantity for an item. And the changed records during this time interval will be synced to inventory visibility service periodically, depending on the recurrent batch job that runs every minute from the background. As a result, despite we have 1 minute interval, you'd get such changes refresh the inventory visibility in a very short delay. Currently, the batch job runs in a fixed interval of 1 minute. However, this is not the only way that you can post data to inventory visibility with a built-in integration. As we will see in a few minutes, you will be able to send more data in a more flexible way by your own customizations. So the batch syncing mechanism is the standard built-in way to sync data. And we do here ask from our users to extend the pattern. And now we show you how to write the customization code to meet with different needs. And we are introducing 2 examples. We believe the following examples would not only showcase how to do customizations inside dynamic 365 supply chain management to integrate with inventory visibility, but would also spark ideas on how you do the integrations with inventory visibility service from other systems as well. For the first example, let us revisit our batch job framework in the previous pages. We know that the 1-minute interval may not be preferred by every user. Some have the requirements to have the ad hoc updates. For example, they are having some important updates from the sales channel, and they want the customers visiting their web store to see it immediately. This is really crucial as they may have the important replenishment visible as soon as possible. They are having a chance to make more orders. So there are 2 challenges coming to this case. Firstly, how can we make the update within the interval of the batch job? And secondly, as the batch job may repeatedly send the same data to inventory visibility service, does this affect the correctness of the result? Surprisingly, what the user actually need to care about is only the customization logic in the upper part. So they can send the result to inventory visibility service and leave the batch job alone. Even if the batch job is sending duplicate data, it doesn't matter. The process to send the data for the pseudocode is presented on the left side. Firstly, in the X++ code, we need to have a client class, which we'll see in a few minutes. The client class is responsible to make connections with inventory visibility service and send the data. And within the client class, we implement a method to post the even sum records to inventory visibility service. So the magic for being okay to sending duplicate data is that inventory visibility service actually provides 2 types of way to send inventory data. The first method is what is called set on hand. With this API, we send the newly updated quantity as the result. In other words, we are sending the snapshots of the latest inventory. So long as the snapshot being sent is correct, it doesn't make a difference if we send it only 1 time or 10 times repeatedly. For integrating with external systems, this method is always preferred as it is more error-prone and less risky to write failures. On the other hand, we also have an API called change event, which posts the changed quantity. For example, we may have 100 pieces that is on hand. Posting a change event of adding 10 would result in an on-hand quantity of 110. And sending another change event for 10 would give 120. For this reason, you cannot send the same result multiple times. Inventory visibility service has the mechanism to check the duplication of results by an entry called ID in your request body. But this interval check will only last for 1 hour. For example, if you take 2 hours, if you send the same result with the same ID in 2 hours later, inventory visibility service will not take it as a duplicate result. So that's the reason why setting on hand multiple times doesn't make difference, and setting on hand API is often preferred in our integration suggestions. And here is the pseudocode. Actually, here is the X++ code on the inventory service client class. The class has, you can refer to this class to find the important X++ code that you can implement to connect to inventory visibility service. The first method, there is a protected method called created HTTP request message. It contains the necessary authentication and connection setup process. And second method is the actual post even sum. Sums request, where you can store the response and parse it for analysis whether the request succeeded or failed, and process the later steps. The second example is more complicated. It is an ask from one of our users leveraging a functionality which is called kitting. So kitting, imagine a case for desktops and legs. The desktops and legs are stock items, so they have no difficulties being synchronized to inventory visibility service. But then we have a kitted item as desks. So a desk should contain of 1 top and 4 legs. A desk is a non-stock item. As a result, they will not be put into the table that is being sent to inventory visibility service. So is it possible to make calculations inside Dynamics 365 supply chain management on the available number of desks to be sold and synchronize them to inventory visibility as well? We will show in the following slides that this is possible by proper customizations. Let's say we have a customized module for kitting, having the raw materials and all the logics that you need to calculate the available quantities for the kitted items. And we show the process into 4 steps. The first step is to calculate the kitting and store the results. And the second step is to make what we call a contract class to map the kitting results to proper fields and values. And the last 2 steps are the same as previous example, to make a new inventory service client and call the post even sum API to send the kitting contract. So here is a sample contract in JSON format on the data format that is accepted by inventory visibility service. The contract consists of following components. Firstly is the ID. We don't have a special requirement for that one, especially it should be unique for each record. And the second one is dimension data source. We further elaborated in the following tech talks, but for integrations with Dynamics 365 supply chain management, it's okay to hardcode F&O keyword here. And the quantities, which is the fields that is being mapped to from your even sum table to inventory visibility service. And basically, they are the even sum quantity fields. And the on-hand offset events as an array will be discussed later when we go to soft reservation features. The organization ID is the data area ID in Dynamics 365 supply chain management. For dimensions, simply encode the inventory dimensions for the record in a JSON format. And the product ID keyword represents the item ID that is in Dynamics 365 supply chain management, and the value is case insensitive. So here is a table of the rules of mapping for inventory dimensions. We have different dimensions in Dynamics 365 supply chain management. For the dimensions with event prefix, for example, event site ID, they are mapped to inventory visibility service by removing the event prefix. For example, the event site ID in Dynamics is the site ID in inventory visibility. And for its keys and values, they are all case insensitive. For some dimensions with no event prefix, for example, WMS location ID, we keep the same value inside inventory visibility. And for the special dimensions with inventory dimension 1 to 10, in inventory visibility, it is called custom dimension 1 to 10 correspondingly. And they are customized fields. There may be customized fields in your event dim table. Simply map them to extended dimension 1 to 8 in inventory visibility service. And these dimension fields are reserved for customization purposes from Dynamics 365 as well as external systems. So here above is two examples on how we do customizations on top of Dynamics 365 to transfer the customized logic data. And now let's discuss the topic of the concepts and terminology comparison between Dynamics 365 supply chain management with inventory visibility service. Firstly, we have advanced warehouse management systems, items. The feature is now at a stage where we support to query the on-hand for WMS items, as well as putting the values into calculate measure definitions. And we have soft reservation and allocation features. They are supported equally on WMS items as well. There is a feature to be released, what we call the reduced loading. So we only transfer a fraction number of warehouse management related data. As a result, we are only allowed to query by sites, warehouse, and inventory statuses. And the advantage for this is that it drastically saves the memory and dataverse usage when you enable a WMS feature from inventory visibility service. There are features that is not yet supported for WMS module. For example, the operations specifically in warehouse management module, like pick to load, are not supported. And we are not supporting querying the warehouse loads, warehouse works, as well as the shipments with transportations inside Dynamics 365 supply chain management. And here is a quick demo on the process of enabling the warehouse management support inside Dynamics 365 supply chain management. To begin with, we go to feature management workspace and select for a feature called enable warehouse items for inventory visibility. We make sure the feature is already enabled, and then we can go to the inventory visibility integration page, the parameter page. There is another toggle that needs to be turned on. here in Enable WMS items, click Yes for the Enable WMS item sync part. Before we start the initial sync, go to Power App Solution and make sure that the Advanced Warehouse Management feature toggle is on. And we update the configuration for the feature update to take action. Finally, we can go back to Dynamic 365 Supply Chain Management to enable the integration again. When everything is successfully set, we should see the warehouse-specific records to be posted is some value of non-zero if you actually have the module inside your Dynamic 365 Supply Chain Management. And when the number finally goes to 0, it means that the initial sync is successful and you can explore the warehouse item data inside inventory visibility. There are some limitations for Dynamic 365 concepts that is not yet supported inside inventory visibility service. For inventory visibility service queries, it does not store a unit of measure. So it means that we don't have a unit of measure yet in the response body, nor in the user interface. By default, we use the inventory unit for all items, including catch weight items. Meaning that if we query the on-hand for the catch weight item, it will return the quantity being returned is the inventory quantity instead of the catch weight quantity. So for one box of rice with 10 kilograms, the query will result 10 instead of 1. And we don't have the intercompany concept inside inventory visibility service. It would receive correct data from Dynamic 365 Supply Chain Management, as the on-hand data itself does not contain intercompany information. But if we wish to make an external change that represents an intercompany change, what you need to do is to post the API calls to 2 organization IDs in a bulk request and mimic the behavior of intercompany operations. For more resources regarding today's Tech Talk, as well as inventory visibility service, you could refer to the inventory visibility service official documentation on the Microsoft Learn page, and refer to the previous Tech Talks that we had last year and the session on August. You're also welcome to join our Yammer group to discuss your usage of inventory visibility service and send us emails, or submit your ideas to the ideas site. So that's the major content for today's Tech Talk. Let's move to Q&A part.
Thank you, Jiacheng. I think we received quite a few questions and we tried to answer them as much as we could. I think let's try to answer some of the one which came recently. The last one which we saw in D365, we cannot filter on the product name. Can it be visible in inventory visibility knowing it's a display field? Jiacheng or Yufei, if you want to take that. So essentially the question is, we cannot filter on product name. So I think.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can take that. Yes, for now, we can't filter on product name itself, meaning the product description, it's no, because currently we are still mainly an API-based microservice, meaning we do not store like product attributes or additional inventory attributes, not yet, but that's one of our backlog items, and we are considering it at the moment. But you can always filter by product ID, and maybe via certain extension, you can achieve doing that with product dimensions as well by wrapping up around our exposed APIs for on-hand query.
Okay, thanks, Yufei. There is another question which is related to the sync of data from Dynamics 365 to inventory visibility service. So the question is each change to inventory in D365 considered a separate API call, or are the sum of all changes per batch run aggregated into one API call?
Yes and no for the second part. So they are wrapped together. The process flow will go in this way. When an inventory change actually takes place, we will take a log on which item on which inventory dimension ID is being changed. And every minute, the batch job will go to the log table and scan the table to join it with current inventory on hand to send a snapshot. The snapshot will be sent in batches because there will be, we don't want a super long HTTP request itself. So it will be, it is not that every single change will be a separate API call, but likely when you have a lot of them, there will be several API calls, and when you have only a few of them, there will be one API call.
Thanks, Jiacheng. There was another question. Can inventory visibility service return quantities per inventory status? Yufei, you want to take that?
So the question is, can inventory visibility return? Yeah. So for the inventory status within inventory visibility, you can set them up as I would take it as dimension. We call it physical measures. For example, it's very similar to what you have in Dynamics 365 SCM. For example, within SCM, you get on order, ordered quantity, reserve ordered, or reserve physical, and for example, once it's being invoiced, you get deducted. So all this they're mapped out of box within inventory visibility service called physical measures. So, and also in addition, if you also connect inventory visibility microservice to other data sources, you can map them to this either the same set of physical measures if you can identify the mapping, or you can create additional physical measures that cover the inventory status from your external data source systems as well. And when you query inventory visibility service, you will receive response of, if you like, you can receive response of, for example, if you query one product or multiple products, you can receive a response that covering the inventory status that you have pre-configured across all your data sources.
Okay. I think we have received one more question. How do you recommend optimizing connection of one website with multiple Dynamics 365 F&O legal entities? Not sure if we, can you elaborate more what exactly you meant by this question, optimizing connection of one website with multiple Dynamics 365 F&O legal entities?
To add on a little bit comment on this question. So even if you have multiple legal entities, they will be hosted in the same Dynamics 365 supply chain management instance, meaning that there will be only, as inventory visibility services and add-in to Dynamics 365, there will be only one inventory visibility service. So there's actually nothing that to do from an infrastructure level to optimize the connection. In practice, when you make the API calls, the best practice is to split the request into smaller chunks. Specifically, we don't query multiple legal entities in the same request, but we send several small requests querying one legal entity in each request. You'll be able to find more elaboration on this topic from our previous Tech Talks, decks, and recordings.
Thanks, Jiacheng. We have received another question. Yufei, this is probably you can answer. This is about the offsetting the soft reservation. So the question is, using the inventory visibility on an e-commerce, when you insert an item in a chat, we can call the reservation API. After that, you create the real sales order in Dynamics 365. How can you deduct that quantities from the soft reservation order you see as a result of an on-hand API?
Yeah, we currently have two ways to do this offset, and they're both out of box. So basically the first way, actually the mechanism how it works is similar. So I was starting from the first one. So once you make a soft reservation call from your, for example, your e-commerce channel to IV, and upon the successful reservation, we would respond to you with a soft reservation ID anyway. And that soft reservation ID is a combination of your product ID plus all your dimension values. So it's not a unique identifier for your specific soft reservation transaction. However, it is a combination of your item ID plus the dimension values combination. With this ID, when you sync your order into Dynamics SCM, and you could choose to populate that ID together with your order lines and then sync into F&O. And once in your F&O, once your order lines processed, for example, to hard reserved or being released to the warehouse for pick and pack, then depends on which status you configure within F&O to trigger the offset. Then the offset will be triggered to IV to actually process the offset of the reservation. IV will be recognizing which item and under which dimension values to offset based on that reservation ID. So that's the first way. The second way is that if you do not want to populate the ID, either because you think it's just too fuzzy to do it, you can leave it blank, but within Dynamics SCM, we did an enhancement that we allow you to check a box called auto offset. Once you check that box when you sync your orders into Dynamics, even if the soft reservation ID is blank, we will still be able to retrieve the item number plus the dimensions on that specific order line and then match back to and then work out which item plus dimension needs to be offset when later on. This offset, of course, will also be posted through that batch job sync between F&O and IV. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thanks, Yufei.
No problem.
We have received a couple of more. The question is how the snapshot of IV surveys to Dataverse table works and look. Jiacheng, you want to take that?
Sure. So how does the IV, is the question, how does the IV entity looks and works? Right.
The question is like about the snapshot, because our underlying architecture does take the backup of inventory visibility data as a snapshot in Dataverse. So to answer this question, there is a table in Dataverse which stores the snapshot, but really, I mean, it's not meant for end users. You won't be able to do anything with it. It's purely reserved for the architecture design between the inventory visibility service and Dataverse.
Yes, I was thinking that there was a small chance that the question is actually meant to ask the snapshot, the actual inventory snapshot instead of the table call snapshot. So as Hiren explained, for Dataverse, when you go to Dataverse, you have a table that contains a word snapshot in its name, but that snapshot is actually a binary, which is used to store the backup data for your for a part of your inventory data. That is for completely a back-end concept, and we don't expect our users to read the data in it because it is actually not readable in a binary format. If by any chance the question is asking for the actual inventory snapshot, which is the one mentioned in the post on hand, the set on hand API call, then it looks almost identical to the even sum table. Very similar between them. So you contain an item ID, the organization ID, the dimensions, as well as the quantities. That's what it looks like.
Okay, thanks, Jiacheng. And I believe there is one more last question. I see the batch query is supported and batch expiration date is on the roadmap. Will it be supported to query for the related batch disposition code of the inventory? Yufei, probably this is for you. Do you know the roadmap for this?
I want to make some clarification here. So the batch ID is already supported. However, the expiration date, it's a backlog item, so it's not officially on our roadmap yet. But we do recognize the importance of it because it's been raised by quite a few customers. So it's really a very common demand. But we haven't really started any design yet, but but I'm still keen to get the very valid different use cases because I want to, when we do the design, we'd like to do a whole completeness of the design instead of just raising one case and trying to fix the gap by one case. So if you don't mind, can you email to me or our team? As you can see this contact on the Q&A panel. You can email to this box directly, sharing your use case and what are the other, for example, apart from expiration date, and what are the other, for example, the batch attributes you'd like to be available and how you'd like to support in your queries. So if you can provide more details, then we can take it from there for further evaluation. That'd be great and very helpful to us as well.
Okay, thanks, Yufei. I think we are almost time. I think I will just hand it over to Cora for closing this.
Great, thank you. I posted a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel. We'd like your feedback on today's session and to hear what you'd like to see in future events. Thank you for your participation. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page within the coming weeks. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters and audience for joining us today. And we are clear.
Yeah. I guess that's it. We don't have that many people, right? As expected. I didn't remember during the process, but
they were up to about